What if an entire community of over 100 people, men, women, children, even a newborn baby, simply vanished from a remote island, leaving behind only a single cryptic word carved into a tree and a post? In the summer of 1590, English explorer John White returned to the New World after 3 long years away, expecting to find his family and fellow settlers thriving. Instead, he discovered an empty village, homes dismantled and no sign of struggle. This is the story of the Lost Colony of Roanoke, America's oldest unsolved mystery. For more than 4 centuries, it has puzzled historians, inspired legends, and sparked endless questions. Where did they go? Did they survive, or did something far more mysterious claim them? In the late 16th century, England was a nation on the rise, eager to challenge Spain's dominance in the Americas. Queen Elizabeth I granted Sir Walter Raleigh a charter to establish colonies in the vast lands she called Virginia, stretching from present-day Florida to Canada. Raleigh, a favored courtier and explorer, dreamed of English settlements rich with gold, timber, and new trade routes. The first attempt came in 1585. A group of soldiers and adventurers, led by Ralph Lane, landed on Roanoke Island, off the coast of what is now North Carolina. The island, sheltered by the Outer Banks Barrier Islands, seemed ideal. Fertile soil, abundant fish, and friendly relations with some local Native American tribes, like the Croatoan on nearby Hatteras Island. But tensions soon arose with other groups. Supplies dwindled, and after a harsh winter, the men abandoned the outpost when Sir Francis Drake's ships arrived in 1586, offering passage home. Undeterred, Raleigh planned a second, more ambitious colony, this time with families, not just soldiers. In May 1587-115, settlers sailed from England aboard 3 ships, under the command of artist and governor John White. Among them were White's daughter Eleanor Dare, her husband Ananias, and a dozen women and children. They arrived at Roanoke in July, intending to pick up a small holding party left the year before. Instead, they found only bones. The men had been attacked. Still, the colonists pressed on. They repaired old fort structures and built new homes. Relations with the local Algonquian peoples were mixed. The friendly Croatoan tribe, led by Chief Manteo, who had visited England, offered alliance. But others remained wary after previous clashes. On August 18, 1587, something extraordinary happened. Eleanor Dare gave birth to Virginia Dare, the first English child born in the Americas. 9 days later, another baby arrived. Hope bloomed amid uncertainty. Crops needed planting, but supplies were low. John White, as governor, agreed to sail back to England for reinforcements and provisions. The colonists promised to hold out. White departed, believing he'd return within months. But war intervened. England's conflict with Spain escalated into the Armada crisis of 1588. Every ship was needed for defense. Raleigh's efforts to send relief failed repeatedly. Privateers plundered supply vessels. White was stranded in England for 3 agonizing years. Meanwhile, on Roanoke, the settlers faced growing challenges: drought, strained resources, and the need to decide their next move in an unfamiliar land. By 1590, John White finally secured passage on a privateering expedition heading to the Caribbean. He convinced the captains to detour to Roanoke. On August 18th, Virginia, Dare's 3rd birthday, White's ship anchored off the island. The crew fired cannons and sounded trumpets, hoping for a response. None came. Landing the next day, White and his men found the settlement eerily deserted. The fort was dismantled, houses taken down neatly, as if the colonists had planned to leave. Chests White had buried were dug up and scattered, some contents gone, others left behind. No graves, no bodies, no signs of battle. But there were clues. The word Croatoan carved boldly into a wooden palisade post, and CRO etched into a nearby tree. No distress cross, as White had instructed, if they were in danger. White knew Croatoan was the native name for Hatteras Island, about 50 miles south, home to Monteo's friendly tribe. The colonists had agreed beforehand. If they relocated, they would carve their destination. White believed they had moved there voluntarily, perhaps seeking better land or alliance. He desperately wanted to search, but a fierce storm struck. Anchors were lost, ships damaged, and the captains refused to risk more. Forced back to England, White never returned. He died years later, still haunted by the unknown fate of his granddaughter, daughter, and the others. The colony, 117 souls when White left, minus a few births and deaths, had vanished. No wreckage, no messages beyond those carvings. Rumors later trickled back. Jamestown settlers in 1607 heard tales from tribes of English people living inland, or grey-eyed natives with European features. But no concrete trace emerged. The Lost Colony entered legend, a puzzle wrapped in the dawn of American history. Chapter 3: Searching for Answers. For centuries, the fate of Roanoke captivated explorers and scholars. Early Jamestown leaders sent expeditions seeking survivors. Hearing conflicting stories, some of massacre by Powhatan tribes, others of assimilation. But wars with native peoples and the struggles of new colonies shifted focus. By the 19th century, historians pored over John White's own accounts and maps. In the 1930s, as America celebrated its colonial roots, the mystery gained new life. Playwright Paul Green premiered The Lost Colony outdoor drama on Roanoke Island in 1937, drawing national attention. Archaeological digs began at Fort Raleigh National Historic Site. Excavations uncovered the original earthworks fort and artifacts from the 1580s, pottery, tools, native items, but nothing definitively explaining the disappearance. Attention turned outward. On the mainland near the Chowan River, patches on old maps hinted at hidden sites. The first colony foundation's digs at Site X and Site Y uncovered 16th century English pottery, aglets, and firearms, suggesting a small group relocated inland, perhaps blending with local tribes. Further south, on Hatteras Island, ancient Croatoan, the Croatoan Archaeological project, led by Scott Dawson and Mark Horton, unearthed European artifacts mixed with native ones, a sword hilt, gun parts, a signet ring, and trade goods. Decades of work revealed a thriving village where English and Croatoan lived side by side. In 2025, breakthroughs accelerated. Digs yielded hammer scale, iron flakes from blacksmithing, dated to the late 6th century, evidence of English metalworking in a native village. Cannons, nautical fittings, and more pointed to prolonged coexistence. These finds built on earlier discoveries, painting a picture of deliberate relocation, not disaster. What really happened? Theories abound, each supported by clues. First, violent ends. Some early reports claimed massacre by hostile tribes or Spanish raiders fearing English encroachment. Drought from 1587-1589, the worst in centuries, could have sparked conflict over resources. Yet no mass graves or battle signs were found, and the neat dismantling of homes suggests planning, starvation or disease. Harsh conditions were real, but the lack of bodies and carved message argue against sudden catastrophe. Attempted return to England? A few might have tried sailing home in makeshift boats, perishing at sea, but unlikely for families with children. The most compelling evidence supports assimilation. The Croatoan carving pointed directly to Hatteras. Recent archaeology there shows English artifacts in native contexts, including ironworking not practiced by locals. Colonists facing isolation likely joined allies like the Croatoan, intermarrying and adopting ways. Later accounts from tribes mention white ancestors and European, traits persisting generations. Some may have split, a group inland to Site X, blending with Roanoke peoples, evidenced by border-wear pottery unique to that era. Others south to Hatteras. The Dare stones carved messages from Eleanor, Dare found in the 1930s claimed tragedy inland, but most are dismissed as forgeries. The first remains debated. Genetic studies of modern Lumbee and other tribes show faint European markers, though inconclusive. Maps with hidden symbols, ground-penetrating radar anomalies, all add layers to the puzzle. More than 435 years later, the Lost Colony endures as America's foundational enigma. Recent discoveries, especially the 2025 hammer scale and metalworking evidence on Hatteras, strongly suggest many colonists survived by integrating with native friends, their English identity fading into new lives. They weren't lost. They chose adaptation in a challenging world. Yet questions linger. Did all assimilate? Were some lost to hardship? Definitive proof, a grave, a document, remains elusive. The mystery reminds us of fragile beginnings, cultural collisions, and human resilience. Roanoke's story isn't one of vanishing, but of transformation, the first blending of worlds that shaped America. And in that, perhaps, the colonists were found all along.